Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst for 17th August 2024, where we will be discussing 9 most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. In the very first article, we will be looking into an editorial about the right to education, its various provisions and the various issues regarding the same. In the next article, we will be looking into Aravali mountain range and the various ecological and environmental concerns in this matter. In the third article, we will be looking into a very important technological mission of the country, which is by the name of IndiaAI Mission. In the next article, we will be looking into the recent launch of Earth observation satellite and the concepts of small satellite launch vehicles. And we will be looking in the fifth article on the recent PLFS quarterly bulletin of 2024 for the months of April to July. And finally, we will be discussing 4 more important articles from Prelims point of view, which is Prelims Snippets, which will be helping you prepare news in shorts. So stay tuned. Hello students, welcome to the first article where we will be discussing on a very important right, which is actually a fundamental right of the country, of its citizens, when it comes to the matter of education. So in India, we have the fundamental right of education, and that is why in this particular article, the author has talked about the various issues regarding the implementation of right to education in the country. So this will be a brief discussion on the status of the RTE, or the right to education implementation in the country. So RTE is very important for your Indian polity and governance, which is a part of prelims, and for GS2 when it comes to the issues and challenges with reference to management of the social sector of services, where we have 3 social sector services included in the syllabus, where we have health, education and human resources. So pertaining to the education topic, we have to look into the same. Now, when we talk about the genesis or the background of the RTE in the country, we understand that it started firstly from the annals or the courtrooms of the Supreme Court. So under the Unikrishnan versus State of Andhra Pradesh case in 1993, Supreme Court for the very first time told that fundamental right should also include the right to education, and this should be granted the status under Article 21, which is actually a very important fundamental right for our country. And this is why we have to understand the Supreme Court further also told that the right to education should not be an absolute right, where the children in the country would be educated up to say 14 years when it comes to the elementary education. When we talk about elementary education, this is a primary education up to the age of 14 years. So Supreme Court told that this would be an absolute right up to the age of 14 and not an absolute right when we consider education as a whole, that is up to 18 years or up to say secondary, higher education and so on. The Supreme Court in that case talked about the same. In the next crucial development with reference to RTE, the Tapas Majumdar Committee of 1999 is crucial because it recommended that we can bring RTE under Article 21. So this was the foundation for which later the Constitution 86th Amendment Act of 2002 was actually passed. It was passed on the recommendation of Tapas Majumdar Committee to include right to education as fundamental right in 2002. And here the Parliament of India amended the 3 important provisions of the Constitution, that is fundamental rights, the directive principles of state policy and the fundamental duties, where the Article 21A was introduced, which is actually the right to education, where according to the article, the state shall provide free and compulsory education to the children from the age of 6 to 14 years in such a manner that must be determined by a law. Later onwards, we would also see that right to education was actually passed in 2009 in form of an statute, right? So this was actually an important fundamental right that was included. Next, the DPSP was also amended with the inclusion for Article 45, where the main provisions where the state shall endeavour to provide early childhood care and education until they reach the age of 6 years. So up to the age of 6 years, this is still a DPSP as of now, right? And when it comes to the fundamental duties, this was actually an addition to 51A, where who is a parent or guardian to be providing the educational opportunities to the children or the ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. So these were the main provisions which were altered, and from here we can understand the main provisions of the then act, of the original act of 2009, that it was given the right to free and compulsory education to all the children in the country, and this was between the age of 6 to 14 years in a neighborhood school. That school can be a government school, that can be a government aided school or partly government funded, or even a private school, right? So that will be from the age of 6 to 14 years. And here the elementary education shall be free until completion. The basic say foundation of education, the primary education, should be free, and no child shall be held back, expelled, or say be eligible to pass board examinations before the age of 14 years. So this is where we have to understand that the free and compulsory education should also come with the security of the education for the child at the school. Next, according to curriculum and recognition parameters and provisions of the particular act, the academic authority would be set up by the center and the state governments. But in the next slide, we'll be looking into the authorities, and also the pupil to teacher ratio would be determined according to the various provisions of the state government. Then a teacher eligibility test is mandatory for the recruitment of the teachers, where the main national guidelines or minimum qualifications for the teachers is stipulated right now by the National Council for Teacher Education. And this is very important because at the national level we have the entire teaching paradigm, and we also know that education comes under the concurrent list, right? This is where the center and the states are having the same say provisions with reference to this act here, right? And next we find that whenever we are talking about the teacher eligibility test, the guidelines will be framed by the centers, right? Then the states have to implement them. When we talk about the responsibilities of schools and the teachers, right, the teachers cannot do any private tuitions on their part, right? And also we find that there is a provision to set up school management committees where the local authorities will be involved, the parents will be involved, the guardians will be involved, the teachers will be involved, right? When it comes to the management, when it comes to the overall aspect of primary education in the country. And also there is a provision of reserving 25% of the seats for extremely backward sections of the populations and the economically weaker sections of the populations, even at the private schools of the country. So this is a very, very important provision that is leading into the inclusion of the children from the lower economic classes of the population in the education sector. So here on, we'll be looking into further more provisions where we talk about the responsibilities of the appropriate government at the center and the state level. So at the central level, we have the National Advisory Council, where the overall guidelines at the say curriculum level, at the various parameters for teaching, parameters for various school infrastructure will be formed. Next, we find we have the National Curriculum Framework, or NCF. You definitely must have heard about NCF. Can you tell me where you can find NCF? Most importantly, in your UPSC preparation, one of the most important sources, right, where you can find the NCF directly written on your books. So National Curriculum Framework is actually the broader framework on which the entire curriculum of the social sciences, the mathematics, or all the subjects in the primary level and also the secondary and the higher levels will be decided. So it is just like the syllabus, overall broad syllabus, right? So the central government is having the authority over the same. Next, the teacher training standards will be standardized by the central government and it will be say implemented by the state governments. Next, when it comes to state government, we'll be having the say main provision or main responsibility of providing education to the children at the state level. So this is actually the implementation side of this overall policy. It's where we have to understand the central government is just giving the guidelines, just giving the regulations. The state government at the grassroots level through the various government schools in various towns, in districts and so on, they are implementing, they will be providing the education, where according to a report in the state of Uttar Pradesh, it has been found out that per student the cost comes to be around 3,064 rupees per month. So this is the cost that has to be borne by the state government. Then also the compulsory admission, attendance, completion of the course, each and every parameter of the implementation of this act has to be overseen by the state governments. And also the availability of the neighborhood school, preferably within 1 to 2 kilometers within the home of the child, must be ensured. And this is where the promotion of more and more government schools are equally important for equally distributing the essential fundamental right to education. Next, according to grievance redressal of various issues that can come out of the implementation of this act, for example, the delays in admission, for example, say the poor quality of infrastructure, teachers and so on. So that can be raised to the National or State Commission for the Protection of Child Rights, where it can have an inquiry, and it can look into the various issues and also have the powers of, say, various statute to deliver solutions in this particular case. Next, the financial resources will be shared between the states and the center, and here the Finance Commission has also been tasked, or say this particular RTE Act has a provision for requesting the Finance Commission for some special grants for this particular, for the implementation of this act. And here, when we talk about the amendments that were made recently to this act, there were two amendments, 2012 and 2019. In 2012, the particular aspect of including children with disabilities were included, where it was conceptualized, it is still implemented right now, to give home-based education for specially students with severe disabilities, where it is leading to more and more inclusive part of the program. Next, it also exempted religious and minority education institutions from the ambit of this act. In the amendment of 2019, the abolition of this no detention policy in particular schools were carried on, where this particular policy, whether it should be abolished or not, whether students can be detained at schools or not, it was left to the states to decide on this particular policy. And when we talk about the students enrolling under this particular act, or gradually, when we talk about the status of enrollment or with reference to this act, we find that this is an overall increasing trend over a period of time from 2012 to the 2018-19 data, where the source is intersection when we talk about the children who are studying under this provision of this act. So it is a good sign that more and more enrollments are increasing over a period of time. But there are various issues in this act. Firstly, the implementation hurdles. It can be the financial allocations from the center or the state government to the various government schools. We know the condition of the government schools in the country. So in your experience, you can also share some of the various experience you have seen from your childhood, and also some of the various peculiar trends you have found at the government schools. So this is the biggest challenge that this act is facing, right? And also the various state governments in the various parts of the country, they're implementing this act in a different way. For example, we know that the Delhi government schools are better than most of the even private schools in the countries. But there are many states in the country, for example, say the West Bengal, the state of West Bengal, or say some of the states in the southern part of the nation, where they are the school infrastructure is absolutely pathetic. Also, there have been various delays in admission process, which is actually delaying the students enrolling in this particular program. Next, we also look at the infrastructure, for example, the benches, the provision of toilets, the blackboards, the chalks, the various basic infrastructure of the school is actually missing, particularly in the rural areas. According to a study conducted in 2016, only 13% of the schools comply fully with RTE norms. So in the RTE provisions, we have various detailed provisions on the school infrastructure, on the various teacher quality and so on. But that level is with only 13% of the schools in the entire country. And also we find that 25% quota is actually very controversial as of now. And also according to this editorial, there have been many state governments such as Maharashtra, such as Gujarat, such as various other states of Rajasthan even, where the state governments have actually, exempted some of the private schools from giving this 25% quota to the EWS population, right? And this is actually done. For example, in the Maharashtra case, the government has in their rules directly specified that if the student is living in this location A, and if the government school is, if any one, even one government school is say within 1 kilometers, right, is within 1 kilometer, so that particular child has to go to government school for availing the provision of right to education. Even if there is a private school, below, within one kilometer, the child cannot enroll within this 25% quota if there is a government school within 1 kilometer. So this was actually struck down by the Bombay High Court, and this was actually a very important reinforcement of the fundamental rights of the citizens, because we have to understand, according to the provisions of the particular RT Act, right, there is no stipulation of 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer provisions. So this is why the Bombay High Court struck down this provision, struck down this order of the Maharashtra government, and also the Supreme Court has upheld the order. So this is a very good sign that we have seen here, right? Next, the no retention policy that was amended in 2019, that is also drawing various criticisms on the, say, age, on the completion, on the delays of the education parameters. Also, the lack of specific penalties on the school authorities, on the local authorities, on the education inspectors, and also on the teachers, most importantly, is also a cause of concern, because it is actually documented, well documented, that the infrastructure facilities, that the various facilities are actually to be blamed. Why? Due to the various officials, due to the various teachers. So also we find the penalties are not, say, commensurate with reference to the offences committed by them. Next, the intermix of responsibilities by the centre and the state governments sometimes lead to the shifting of the blames by the centre to the states and states to the centre, regarding the lack of funds, regarding the lack of teaching parameters, and so on. So this is also a very important matter, where according to various committee recommendations, also according to J.S. Verma Commission recommendations, we have found that there have been recommendations to actually include the education in the, say, state list, where the states can better implement with their own resources, right? So also we find that there are, most importantly, teaching issues, as from the, say, ASA 2023 survey, where we look at the basic numeracy skills or the basic reading skills. For example, the basic say survey that the ASR did is with reference to whether the students can actually read Punjabi at the Mohali schools, at the district schools, or say they can actually enroll in various vocational training, various arts and humanity courses, or whether they can solve some division problems, addition problems, and so on. So it was found that students mainly cannot are not well adept at mathematics and numeracy and basic reading skills. So this is the main reasons why we find that the teaching say parameters becomes very important. According to J.S. Verma Commission, there are actually various recommendations that the teachers and the overall schools must be implementing to strengthen the provisions of this particular act. Now here, the main way ahead we have to understand, we have to address the present challenges. So we discussed the present challenges. Also, I talked about the various committees and the way forward and the various solutions that you can give in your answer. Also, when we talk about the various important issues, the state level policies and the amendments, particularly in the case of, say, Maharashtra case, right? We found that the High Court had to intervene. So at the state level, the policies must be very uniform. The private schools and the state governments, they must not be having any nexus of excluding the quota from the private schools, right? So this is where the state level policies must be well attuned with the fundamental rights of the citizens. Also, we understand that more inclusion in the school management committees. We have the teachers, the parents, the local body authorities in the school management committees, but we can also include the NGOs, we can include the various professors, we can include the various retired bureaucrats in the school management committees at the local level to better oversee the administration and the working of the schools. Also, we must be focusing on teacher training program, where a very important PM Shri schools, that is PM schools for rising India, which is actually having the goal of nurturing well-rounded individuals equipped with 21st century skills. And here will be more than 14,000 schools will be upgraded. And also we have to understand that the provision of vocational education and the various important aspects of the new age skills of digital skills, AI skills, coding, everything will be included within the same. And here the teaching training programs becomes very, very important for the part of the state and the central government. Then under the National Education Policy 2020, we have seen that there is an overhaul, say, management change, overall teaching curriculum change with reference to the schools in the country. So let us implement the National Education Policy in letter and spirit, and also bringing the compulsory, say, provisions of vocational education, upskilling provisions, say, extracurricular activities of sports and so on in this particular act. Next, on the aspect of funding and budget, we must be increasing the budget for education in the country. Can you let me know how much the government of India spends on education? In the comments, can you let me know that? And finally, we must be also trying to have more incentives, particularly for the, say, families of the students, to promote them to send their own child to the schools. And this is very important. Why? Because we can have many incentives such as midday meals, right? We can actually have incentives in the case of some monetary benefits, as also seen in the case of West Bengal in the scope of Kanyashri Prakalpa, right? So there are many state government specific schemes also to focus on the incentives to actually promote students, especially girls, for going into schools. So this is where the total way ahead into amending the issues, reforming the issues in this particular act should be. And here we have two PYQs from 2018 from prelims and 2022 for mains. So as you know that there are the various provisions in this act, so that is where the prelims have also asked you regarding the provisions of the same. We have discussed the provisions. Can you let me know in the comments what is the answer to this particular one? And also, when we talk about the PYQ mains here, the question was the right of children to free and compulsory education, Act 2009 remains inadequate in promoting incentive based system for children's education without generating awareness about the importance of schooling. Analyze. So can you let me know of 2-3 points that you can think for this answer? In the next article, we'll be looking into the Aravali and the green wall debate right now, because the destruction of the hills has led to the loss of vegetation and soil cover, upsetting the area's biodiversity. This is an extremely important topic for UPSC prelims when we talk about environmental topics, and also for GS1, where we have important geophysical phenomena, where we have the topic of desertification, right? And for GS3, we have to discuss about conservation, environmental pollution, degradation, and environmental impact assessment. So these are the various provisions of syllabus, and let us start firstly with the location and the various features, special features of the Aravali mountain ranges. We know that Aravali mountain ranges are the oldest fold mountain range in India and one of the oldest fold mountain range across the world. It is actually located between the states of Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana and Delhi, where more than 60% of the area of the Aravali range falls in the state of Rajasthan. It stretches for around 670 kilometers, where the highest point is at Guru Shikhar at Mount Abu, which is having the height of around 1.7k meters, and there is a very important pass known as Haldi Gati. Now, can you let me know in the comment, the Battle of Haldi Gati was fought between whom and in which year? This is actually from your history. And also we find that this is dominated by dry deciduous forest vegetation. And when we look at the geological importance of this entire mountain range, this is actually a very, very important mountain that is dating back to Proterozoic era, which is actually millions of years old. And the main ecological significance of Aravali mountain ranges is that it is forming as a natural green wall between the, say, Gangetic plains here and the Thar desert in this region, right? So this is actually a very, very important source of protecting the deserts from actually spreading into the Gangetic plains, and this is providing barriers from various sandstorms, dust storms from that part of the, say, country in the Thar desert to actually come into the Gangetic plains too. And also we find this is an important ecotone, which is actually a transition zone between two different ecosystems, that is a desert ecosystem, the Gangetic plain ecosystem. And also we find that is a rich amount of diversity that are actually biodiversity that is actually present at any ecotone. The similar is a provision at the Aravali mountain ranges, where we have a rich trove of biodiversity, where we have unique amounts of plants and animals found in this region. And also this is acting as a vital watershed for rivers such as Yamuna, Sabarmati and Mahi. So it is a very, very important ecological and geographical place for the entire country, especially the North Indian places. But as of now, due to increased amount of mining, due to increased amount of urbanization and unchecked developments, it is leading to a loss of biodiversity, especially mass areas are deforested in the Aravali range, and the deforestation is leading to loss of nutrients and soil moisture, which is leading to biodiversity loss. And we find that whenever we have biodiversity loss via various anthropological reasons, there is a decreased diversity of plants and soil organisms within the same region. That is what is taking place in Aravali right now, where there is an increasing amount of desertification, or this amount of anthropological reasons, which is reducing the plant diversity and the soil nutrition too. On the other side, we also have high amount of greenhouse gas emissions, we have carbon dioxide emissions, we have increasing amount of global warming gases around the country. So this is also leading to increased amount of CO2 emissions, increased amount of greenhouse gases, which is in turn leading to climate change, and climate change is leading to heat waves, climate change is leading to extreme weather events such as even droughts, which is also leading to loss of soil moisture and soil fertility. And we know whenever the soil fertility loses, there would not be, we can actually hardly find any plants, we can actually have any animal biodiversity in the region. That is actually a process where once fertile land, once biodiverse land turns into a deserted land, and this is a form of, this is actually the process of desertification, which is actually now seen in many parts of the world. When we talk about the North Americas, such as US, right, we have higher amounts of droughts and wildfires. When we look at the Amazon rainforest, we have wildfires taking place in the Amazon areas also. When we talk about the African Sahel region, where we have the Sahara desert, that desert is also increasing over a period of time due to unchecked deforestation and increasing amount of urbanization. When we also talk about the area surrounding Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, right, this is also leading to increase in salinity of the region due to increased amount of irrigation and various anthropological reasons. And also when we talk about Australia, there is increasing amount of bushfires, right, where it is leading to the degradation of the overall natural ecosystems, and all of these particular natural environmental scenarios are actually fueled by biodiversity loss and climate change. So it cannot be entirely called as natural. This is actually fueled by human beings and their aspirations for development, and this is what is leading to increasing amount of infertility among the land and increasing amount of deserts, which is actually spreading the climatic boundary. We know that there are natural deserts like Sahara and the various deserts all around the world, but their boundaries are increasingly increasing over a period of time, and the same thing is happening in India over this Thar desert, just surrounding the Aravali hills, where it is due to various reasons, right? The reasons have been captured in a very important study in Earth Sciences Informatics, where according to the study from 1999 to 2019, there has been almost 1% decline in the forest cover. Due to urbanization, there is also a pressure on the forest, where urbanization in this area, right, population in this area has increased from 4.5% to 13% in this area. Next, the mining areas have also expanded, where according to reports it is told that by 2059, 3.5% of the hills will be prone to or susceptible to mining. So there are various natural resources found in this region, but we understand that the mining activities are expanding at a very high rate, at around 2.2% right now, and if it is going at this particular rate, the entire forests of the Aravali range will be totally denuded, as you can see in this particular picture, right? And we can also understand the Aravali is standing as a checkpoint, or as a green wall between the desert and the plains. So if there won't be any forest, there would be hardly anyone to stop the dust storms flowing away from the Thar desert into the areas such as Delhi, and also as of 2022, 2023, and even in some areas in 2024, the North Indian place has actually witnessed a lot of increasing amount of dust storms, sandstorms in the country. This is actually due to this particular area. Also, we find there is a reduction in water bodies due to this unchecked development, which is also leading to lesser amount of percolation of groundwater, right? And this is also leading to extreme amount of water stress in this particular area, where already there is a lack of rivers, where we have seen the various instances of Rajasthan and Gujarat reeling under water crisis, and this particular thing will be exacerbating the water crisis even more. And also this area has low enhanced vegetation index, which is looking into the richness of vegetation of say flora and fauna in this region. If it is having a low enhanced vegetation index, it means that the diversity is very low, and if the diversity is very low, this area is extremely prone to desertification, and this will be leading to various other adverse effects, that is the overall ecological effects that will be leading to cascading effects on the various say ecological population in the area. Also, desert is actually spreading, the Thar desert is actually spreading its boundary over the denuded hills of the Aravali. Due to the lack of soil moisture, due to the lack of rainfall, due to the lack of various forest cover, we find that the desert area is spreading. This is actually posing a direct risk to the tribal populations, to the local flora and fauna, and most importantly, the major towns and cities in the area. And also, the extreme weather events of sandstorms, of say droughts, are also becoming more and more frequent in this region, right? Next, we have the various illegal land encroachment in Haryana, where the real estate developments, they are actually causing a lot of disturbance in the area, where we have also the issue of unchecked tourism in this particular place. We have unregulated tourism and construction in southern Rajasthan and Gujarat is leading to a lot of destruction in the Aravali ranges. And here, that is why there are various recommendations we will be abiding by. Firstly, we must be constructing a green wall. This is according to the provisions of the Government of India, where a green wall is essentially a forest belt. This is a forested area where afforestation has to be done in the say denuded areas of the Aravali range, where the main conceptualization has been done from Porbandar to Delhi, right, to around say Panipat and Delhi, and this will be covering the entire region, where this entire region will be forested. And we are getting this idea of green wall from the African Great Green Wall Initiative, where we understand, we have discussed right now, that the boundaries of the desert of Sahara desert is increasing, and to check this increasing boundary, we must be afforesting the regions, especially at the borders of the desert, right? So all of the African nations that are in this area, they have agreed to collaborate on actually going into afforestation measures, local plantation species and so on. So this will be leading to better amount of afforestation and high amount of diversity in the region, which will be checking the growth of desert further. Next, we must be also doing a LiDAR based drone survey to actually map the areas where we need to focus on the Aravalis, right? Next, we must be establishing an Aravali Development Authority to comprehensively look into the various deforestation measures and also against the mining activities in this region, right? Then we must be banning firstly all forms of mining in the region, and secondly, all of the existing mines, they must be converted into some say heritage parks, some say sustainable tourism opportunities, where more and more sustainable tourism can be promoted. Next, the National Clean Air Program must be also looking into the aspect of dust storms, sandstorms coming from the region, and must also be dedicating fund for the afforestation or greening of the Aravali region. Next, farming reforms must be taking place, where it has also been seen due to overuse of fertilizers and chemical pesticides, the quality of the say soil in these particular areas in the farmlands, they are decreasing. And also due to deforestation, mining operations, the soil have already been poisoned. So this is where the farming reforms, for example, say promotion of millet cultivation, natural farming, they must be promoted in this particular areas by actually the government must be actually be providing more and more funds. And finally, the government must be also promoting the construction of new entities, or say promotion of use of AIM sand, which is actually manufactured using coal remnants or coal mine remnants and various other construction activities. So this is actually a better alternative than using sand in various construction activities in this particular areas. Now here I have a question from PYQ from 2020, where the question was in GS1. The question is, as the process of desertification does not have any climatic boundaries, justify with examples. And from my side, I am giving you one more practice question, where the time to act is now before the natural green wall of the northwestern India crumbles under the weight of human greed and environmental neglect. Comment. So please do let me know what you think must be done, and say what should be done more in this particular matter. In the next article, we'll be looking into India AI Mission, where the government has finalized a tender document to actually procure 1000 GPUs or graphics card or graphics processing units, which are an essential component of formalizing and developing the AI ecosystem in the country, which is by the name of India AI Mission. This is an important article from your general science perspective and from your GS3, where we have to look into the awareness in the fields of IT and computers. Now, when we talk about the importance of artificial intelligence in the entire world, we understand that the president of Russia back in 2017, he told that AI will be the ruler of the world, and the nation that will be actually promoting AI development and technology, they will be the super leader of the entire world. And that is why we have to understand that the promotion of AI is very, very important when we look at the innovation, at the capital, at the rules, at the data regulations and everything with reference to AI. The top countries in the world, top 5 countries in the world are US, China, UK, Japan and Germany. India does not even feature in this particular figure here. So there we understand that within the top 5 India is not figuring, but we understand within the top 15 India is at the 15th place. But that is why over a period of time, to increase India's national dominance and geopolitical influence of controlling the technology and having India's own large language models, machine learning platforms, its own AI trainers, its own AI servers and data and so on. So India must be investing a lot in this aspect, because in the recent times we have seen there's a rise of chat GPT like AI chatbots such as generative AI. There's a rise of large language models, which is a complicated and sophisticated neural networks, and also there is a potential rise of artificial general intelligence, which is the next step of artificial intelligence, where AI will be becoming more and more self-aware and almost like human beings. So this is where India's movement, or say early particular say initiatives, are very important for the development of AI in the country, where India took the very first strides according to Niti Aayog's National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence in 2018. And also India had this slogan for AI for all, where we have to include AI and also understand the various applications of AI in healthcare, education, agriculture, smart cities and smart mobility. So this is where we have to understand the importance of AI lies, and particularly if India is not developing alongside the other countries, India will be lagging behind. And particularly for that matter, India's AI revolution is gaining a momentum because of this India AI mission, where around 10,000 crore, approximately $1.3 billion has been dedicated for increasing the compute capacity of AI in the country. When we talk about the working of AI, we understood there are many software engineers, there are very AI data trainers, where the data is generated, they are trained on various models. The actual requirement of India to have its own large language models. So this will be requiring a lot of computing processing power, simply a lot of computers that are fueled by the graphical processing units, because GPUs, say Nvidia's GPUs, say AMD's GPUs, they are having better amount of capability to process AI code and algorithm. So that is why the increasing amount of ecosystem of GPUs is needed. That is why India is promoting to purchase and say include 10,000 plus GPUs for its India AI mission. And this the main key pillars is actually standing on the compute capacity and building database platforms in the country for AI development. India is also trying to establish innovation and application development centers, where more and more applications for health, defense and other sectors will be factored into these centers. Then India is also having this pillar of promoting future skills development, where collaboration with schools, colleges, universities, research institutions are very important to develop the future skills for the country. Then we must be supporting AI startups through financing, where there are many AI startups all around the world, and that is what we must be also promoting in India. And finally, the safe and trusted AI models, data, protocols, guidelines must be also ensured, where in this particular India AI mission, 50% of the funds, almost around 4.5 thousand crores, right, they have been dedicated for purchasing of 10,000 GPUs. And this is actually done with the help of private sector in PPP model, where 50% of the funding will be given by the government under viability gap funding. Viability gap funding is actually a kind of funding which the government actually gives to the private sector for some extra expensive projects, infrastructure projects, where the private sector maybe not be having the funds right now. So that is where the government is trying to extend the support via this viability gap funding. And the broader implications for the AI ecosystem with reference to a recent tender of 1000 GPUs is that in this particular tender, in this particular news article, it has been seen that the government has issued a tender where the data localization manners and the AI sovereignty has been proposed, where all of the data that AI will be training in India, that has to be located within the geographical and the, say, domestic territory of the country only. It cannot leave the country with reference to the personal data of the citizens or of the various applications of the country. Next, the sovereignty or the ownership of the data will be of India's only. That is why India is trying to promote Atmanirbhar Bharat in the country by actually giving the tenders to only Indian entities as of now. Right. Next, India is also trying to boost innovation and competitiveness by promoting Indian entities and helping AI startups to build more and more foundational models such as India's own ChatGPT maybe, right, as seen in the case of Ola's Krutrim, which is also an AI chatbot from India's own side, right? But there are various challenges. Firstly, the scaling of infrastructure is very important, and this is a challenge because of the lack of funds. GPUs are actually very, very costly, and India needs a lot of GPUs to become the powerhouse in AI, to become the leader in AI, right? And this is where the infrastructure will be needing a lot of funds, where the private sector must be also be infused with lot of funds. Next, the democratic access to AI resources must also be ensured, where all of the, say, for example, say MSMEs, the startups, right, for example, so the colleges, the institutions, research institutions, they must be also be having the access to the funds for AI research. And finally, there must be actually clear guidelines as to how this particular GPUs and how the foundation models will be implemented, as also has been seen in the cases of EU AI Act, where detailed foundations, detailed guidelines of the overall AI architecture has been included. Further, there are more recommendations. Firstly, the setting of IndiaAI Centers of Excellence, where they should be set up in hub and spoke model and will be governed by independent autonomous entities. And we must be also trying to set up India database platform, where it is a platform which can be including the database for research, and also various other private sectors, they can also purchase the various data within the state. And there must be a design of National Data Management Office, where this should be a non-statutory agency which will be acting as a regulator in various aspects of AI. And then we must be having an India AI future design, which will be actually a scheme which will be looking into supporting the AI startups in the country. And finally, the skilling ecosystem must be also developed with reference to various trainers and various AI algorithms, and the training capabilities to be set up at various universities, various private startups, and the various aspects of the country. So this is where we come to the conclusion of this article, where we have another mains practice question for you all, that IndiaAI Mission could position India as a global powerhouse in AI. Discuss. And always when we are discussing, or say when we are solving some of the mains PYQs, and this is maybe a question in science and tech, it is always better to draw a brief diagram to illustrate the definition, and also to understand the various different concepts in AI, such as AI functioning as a set of machine learning, neural networks, deep learning. So you can actually include this in your answers to make your answers more illustrative. In the next one, we'll be looking into the recent launch by Indian Space Research Organization of the EOS satellite aboard the small satellite launch vehicle. It's a very important article from your general science and for your GS3, which is an achievement of Indians in the science and tech area. Well, firstly, when we look at the EOS 08, it is an advanced imaging technology where the Earth observation satellites, they generally have observations on the various aspects of disaster monitoring, the environmental monitoring of the country, fire detection, surveillance of the nation. And it is actually capable of capturing images in mid-wave and long-wave infrared bands. So this is very important for your prelims. And also, EOS 8 has a mission life of 1 year, where we have also a dosimeter to actually measure UV irradiance in the Gaganyaan mission, which will be launching astronauts. Can you let me know in the comments in which year? So this is actually trying to have better suitability for the Indian astronauts on this mission, where we will be having the observations from the EOS crucial for the Gaganyaan mission. Also, this is fitted with advanced integrated avionics systems, which will be helping the ISRO to better navigate and gather data on the various parameters in this particular mission. When we talk about the satellite launch vehicles, about which the small satellite launch vehicles about which the EOS has been launched, we find that generally satellites have 3 stages of launch, right? This is the first stage, right, where we have generally the motors to propel the rocket forward. Then we have the second stage of mainframe, and finally we have the spacecraft, the main important satellite, at the third stage, or even at the 4 stages. Generally we have various satellites, say launch vehicles in the country from 1980, where we had the SLV, then we had the ASLV. Right now we use 4 satellite launch vehicles such as the PSLV, GSLV, LVM3 and SSLV, right? And finally we also have in 2024 a planned kind of satellite launch vehicle, which is by the name of LVM3, right? Now when we talk about the PSLV, which is the most used satellite launch vehicles by the ISRO as of now, right, it has 4 stages, right? First stage has a solid motor, then we have at the second stage a liquid stage, at the third stage another solid rocket motor, and at the 4th stage we have another liquid engines. Now this is actually the PSLV, which is having 4 stages, and when we look at the GSLV satellites, both have the 3 stages, where at the GSLV, Mark 3, right, we have solid, then Vikas engine and the cryogenic engine in the 3 stages. When we look at the LVM3 here, we have the core stage, then we have the liquid, then we have the cryogenic stage. And generally when we talk about the GSLV satellite launch vehicles and the satellites they launch in the orbits, those satellites, it seems from the earth that it is in a stationary format, and those from the PSLV and those from the small satellite launch vehicles, they're generally launched at a further lower orbit, which is also known as low Earth orbit. And the main benefits, right now we have to understand why ISRO is using more of SSLV increasingly as of in the recent times, is due to its portable size, and also it is very convenient to set up as early as within 2 to 3 days, and whatever the requirements would be for India's side and also for the various important India's neighbors and partners such as Bangladesh, such as Thailand, and also partners such as Russia, we're also launching satellites from their own sites. So we need more and more modular satellites, and we need more and more practical and compact satellites. So this is why the SSLVs are performing in a better way. So finally, we have a PYQ from 2018, where with reference to satellite launch vehicles, these are the following statements, and you do let me know the answers in the comments below. In the next article, we'll be looking into the recent PLFS quarterly bulletin, where the Indian unemployment rate is at 6.6% as of second quarter of financial year 2024. Now these articles are very important for economic and social development in prelims, and also for GS3, where we have Indian economy and the various issues and challenges related to the employment scenario in the country. Now when we look at the PLFS survey, this was actually launched by the NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization, in 2017 April, but later it was actually undertaken by the National Statistical Office as of now under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. The frequency of the PLFS survey in the urban areas is quarterly, and for the rural and the urban areas both, they are annually. Where in the urban areas, in the quarterly data, we find only current weekly status. Current weekly status refers to the major economic activity undertaken by the people in the last 7 days, where even they have worked for 1 hour, that will be counted as employment. And if the person has worked less than 1 hour, that person will be counted as unemployed individual. And when we talk about the annual survey of PLFS, that is actually carried out by the usual status, where we have the principal status and the subsidiary status. Along with the same, we also have current weekly status, where the usual status is nothing but the principal economic activity, or say the major economic activity carried out by the person in the last 1 year, and the secondary economic activity, say some other economic jobs and other some employment, minor employment done by the person in the last 1 year. So generally we find that the usual status is looking in the long-term perspective of the unemployment of the country, where structural changes in labor force can be let know of. And finally, the current weekly status is looking into the short-term snapshot of the unemployment situation in the country. And the main indicators that the PLFS use are the labor force participation rate, worker population ratio, and unemployment rate, where the labor force participation rate is actually the labor force divided by population in 200. The worker population ratio is actually the employed people divided by the total population, and finally unemployment rate is referring to the unemployed by the total labor force. So these formulas are extremely important for your prelims. And finally, when we talk about the PLFS, it time and again tries to disseminate or release the data in a very organized way, because it is leading to policymakers frame suitable economic decisions for the country. And when we look at the recent data, as we have seen, this quarterly data, as we know, these are actually for the urban areas. And when we talk about the recent scenario of unemployment, rate of unemployment, this is at 6.6% at the overall India level, where we have more unemployment among the female population of the country with reference to the male population. And also when we talk about the labor force participation rate, we have this around 74.4% of labor force participation rate, where we see that the amount of male participation rate is more at 74.4%. The overall India rate is at 50%, and the lowest is the female labor force participation rate at just 25%. So we need to know the various important provisions where we must be promoting more and more women-led employment benefits and employment schemes, right? And here let us look at the various important employment generation schemes from the government of India's perspective. Firstly, we have from the recent government union budget 2024-25 the employment linked incentive, where the various employees in the first time and say in second time and say in the various responsibilities of the employer, they are actually linked and they are actually delineated by this employment linked incentive. So this employment linked incentive scheme is actually a various detailed amount of provisions for promoting new employees and retaining their earnings with reference to their PF contributions and the various employer contributions, social security and so on. Next, we have Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which is guaranteeing 100 days of non-skilled work to the rural area population. Next, we have the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which is a very important skilling imperative, skilling scheme for the rural and the urban population. Next, we have the Din Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushal Yojana to promote more and more skilling opportunities in the rural areas only. And in the National Urban Livelihood Mission, it is trying to promote more and more self-help groups and the aspect of bank SSG linkage, and to include the unemployed urban youth in the labor force of the country. Next, we have the Stand Up India schemes to promote more and more promotion of entrepreneurship among the women, SC and ST communities. Then we have the National Rural Livelihood Mission to promote more and more aspect of self-help groups again, and the various aspects of inclusion of the rural population in the labor force, and some of the state specific schemes such as Berojgari Bhatta Yojana by the various state governments. So these are the various aspirations, the various government schemes to decrease the unemployment rate in the country. Now, according to the same, we have two PYQs from prelims and mains. The prelims is from 2013, where I want your simple answer. What is this guy's unemployment in the comment below? And for your mains PYQ, the question is, most of the unemployment in India is structural in nature. Examine the methodology adopted to compute unemployment in the country and suggest improvements. So you in the comment section, you let me know what is the methodology that was also discussed in the previous analyst sessions recently when it comes to the unemployment measurement in the country. Finally, we'll be discussing important prelims snippets where the first article is regarding the cabinet decision to approve new construction of airports at the tune of almost 3,000 rupees crores in the country. And according to the recent news articles regarding the airport, recently the Kempegowda International Airport at Bangalore is the first airport in Asia to receive the Airport Council International certification of level 5. And it is very important to understand this particular Airports Council International's origin because of the certification given to the Bangalore International Airport. Now this ACI was established in 1991, headquarters are at Montreal, Quebec at Canada, and the main function is that it is looking into the organization of the airport authorities and also uniting various industry practices in the aviation sector all around the world. The major programs of ACI is firstly the Air Safety Enhancement or APEX, next Airport Service Quality Awards, and the next Experience in Travel and Technologies. And according to the recent rankings of 2024, the Hamad International Airport at Qatar, the Singapore Changi Airport and Incheon International Airport of South Korea, they are the top 3 airports all around the world according to ACI, right? In the next article, we'll be looking into the Krishi Decision Support System, where this is a cutting-edge geospatial platform where using the satellites we can use various information regarding yield grain or reduce cost, better harvest, better farm management practices, and we can also have chemical control, we can save time, and we can actually increase the land value by using satellite data, AI algorithm, agrological data, the land records, historical yield data, and so on. Also by analyzing the soil types. This is developed by the Ministry of Agriculture, which will be giving comprehensive agricultural data like satellite images, weather information, and soil health. And using this, the farmers can be supported by making real-life decision, crop monitoring, and disaster management, where there will be modules for crop mapping, drought monitoring, field parcel segmentation, soil health information, and so on. And it will be also facilitating innovation via ground truth data library, where the farmers and the various AI startups, say the various startups in agriculture also, they can use the data to have better amount of products for the agricultural sector. In the next one, we'll be looking into the Committee on Public Accounts. Firstly, when we talk about the Committee on Public Accounts, the origin dates back to 1921 after the Government of India Act of 1990. Now, can you let me know another name of Government of India Act of 1919 in the comments below? The authority of this committee is actually from Article 105 about the special privileges and also from the Article 118 of the Indian Constitution. Then it is actually constituted by the Lok Sabha rules annually, and the members are from Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha both. Lok Sabha we have 15 members, from the Rajya Sabha we have 7 members, so total of 22 members. The total strength of the committee is actually around 22 members, and the chairman is appointed by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. The main functions of the PAC is actually the examination of audit reports, scrutiny of the public expenditure, identification of waste and losses of the revenues of the government, recommending corrective measures, and enforcing accountability of the government. And here we can also look at the various parliamentary committees, where we have standing committees and ad hoc committees. The standing committees are divided into financial committees, where we have the Estimate Committee, Public Account Committee, and Committee on Public Enterprises or Undertakings, right? So these are there are other various department related committees, where we have committees under Lok Sabha and the committees under Rajya Sabha. So these are the various committees that you need to definitely look for your prelims and also for your mains part. Finally, we'll be looking into windfall tax. Windfall tax is actually levied by any government when any business in the country or any professional service in the country is having some abnormal profits, right? So this is a tax levied by governments on certain industries when the economic conditions allow them to have exponential and significant above average profits. This can take place, for example, say in the case of say COVID crisis, we have seen the prices of oxygen gas cylinders, they increased exponentially. In the cases of hurricanes and cyclones, we find that the cost of one water bottle increases suddenly. Also during geopolitical crisis, the prices of crude oil, they increase suddenly. And whenever the prices of crude oil increases, the private companies in the country, right, they will be having more profits due to higher global prices. And to actually make some revenue, tax revenue from these higher profits, the government will be imposing this kind of windfall taxes. In India, they are generally imposed on oil, gas and mining. The main reason is firstly redistribution of the unexpected gains that the private sector is suddenly making. So we can actually have some percentage of that profit, and say we can have some social welfare schemes and reduce inequality by redistribution of the gains. And we can also have supplementary revenue stream for the government for various government operations. And we can also narrow the trade deficit in this particular way, where due to higher prices, right, the imports of say various crude oil and so on, they will be reducing. And also the additional imposition of tax, they will be increasing the prices higher, and they will be further reducing the import. And whenever we know that imports decrease, the trade deficit, which is the formula of import minus exports, they also decrease, leading to better GDP of the country. So that was all for today. I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you again.